Top 10 waiver wire ads for week 4, and it is a big one. It is finally here. 4 teams on a bye this week: Atlanta, Chicago, Green Bay, and Pittsburgh. And it is a weird one because some of our better waiver wire ads are actually on some of these teams. So, how are we approaching waivers this week? If you watch my videos, you've already got Woody Marks. He was my highest rated priority handcuff because Nick Chubb flat out hasn't looked good and because we have had zero information on any potential return for Joe Mixon. Mixon should not be rostered at this point unless you have a whole bunch of IR spots to burn. You need to be operating with the assumption that he is not coming back anytime soon. Week after week, we have seen Woody Marks creeping up in snaps, and he this week just straight up bullied Nick Chubb out. Marks played 40 snaps, Chubb played just 30 snaps. Marks had more carries, he ran more routes. He is the better back at this moment. This type of production, giving a much needed pop to a struggling team, that is the type of performance that makes a coaching staff flip their backfield. Marks had 17 carries for 69 yards and a touchdown, plus 4 receptions on 5 targets for 50 yards and a receiving touchdown. In week 5, the Texans face a Ravens defense that has been, well, flat out awful. Marks is going to shoot up rankings this week. He is a must grab. The road ahead is going to be tough for Jaxson Dart. Things were looking very promising, and then he lost his wide receiver 1 in Malik Neighbors. But all is not lost. Dart looked excellent and showcased very well on the ground. He is essentially going to be on the Drake May 2024 path. No wide receiver 1, questionable offensive line, but serious upside on the ground makes him a viable QB1. Dart only had 20 attempts and completed 13 of them for just 111 yards and 1 passing touchdown. But he had 10 carries on the ground for 54 yards and a rushing touchdown. That math works out in fantasy football. He didn't have to throw high volume, though, because they were up and the Giants' defense, to its credit, did look good this week. It should be noted that the defense might have looked good because the Chargers' offensive line was severely depleted, but the Giants have an excellent matchup in Week 5 against the Saints. Dart will be a viable streaming option this week, a critical week, again, as we have 4 teams on bye. Did you stash Kenneth Gainwell prior to the early morning international kickoff? Again, if you watch my videos, I said to stash Kenneth Gainwell Saturday just in case Jaylen Warren's knee injury took a wrong turn, and lo and behold, that is exactly what happened. We got the notification right before the game, sorry to the West Coast people, that Jaylen Warren was going to be out, despite the fact that Gainwell has operated as the secondary back behind Jaylen Warren. Caleb Johnson remains the higher roster player. This week's game is about as definitive as you can get. Gainwell had 19 carries for 99 yards, 2 touchdowns, and caught all 6 of his targets for 35 yards. Johnson had just 6 carries for 22 yards. Gainwell played 41 out of 53 snaps. That is a lot. Johnson played just 11. The back that you want to have here outside of Warren is Kenneth Gainwell. I understand that rookie hype is appealing, right? He was a very intriguing prospect, but the Steelers are incredibly straightforward about their preferences. Now, they are on a bye this week, but Gainwell has been more of a 1B to Warren and does offer a little standalone value with his receiving upside. After the bye week, they have a matchup against Cleveland and then softer matchups after that. Gainwell is a solid roster, and this game was your proof of the real pecking order in Pittsburgh. Also, it is very important to note that Calvin Austin suffered a shoulder injury. The Steelers do not trust any wide receivers outside of DK Metcalf and Calvin Austin. If this injury is serious, expect more receiving work to the running backs, which again increases that standalone value for Kenneth Gainwell. Now remember, this game was against a Dallas defense that got lit up by Russell Wilson, who then turned around and gave a job-losing performance. But a good game is a good game, so we have to give credit where credit is due to Romeo Doubs. Doubs has typically been a guy that can offer a decent floor, but has really struggled to give upside consistently. But with Jaden Reed still a long way from returning, Matthew Golden still developing, the Packers may lean on Romeo Doubs as the veteran here. The Packers are on a bye again, so it should be noted that we could see Christian Watson activated from IR after the bye, and Watson is also a viable stash option. But Romeo Doubs stepped up this week in a very clear way, and he will continue to be a low-end flex option as long as Jaden Reed is out. Kendre Miller has been creeping in, and while it is tough to imagine a scenario where he outright takes the job from Alvin Kamara, there is another potential reason why we should look at Miller. The Saints are fully aware that they are on a very quick path to a first overall pick. Spencer Rattler, to his credit, actually has not looked that bad, but this isn't a team that is going to be competing anytime soon. It is very possible that teams could come knocking for Alvin Kamara, and Miller is left as the last man standing. Kamara has not looked bad. He's just not being used in a way that works for us from a fantasy perspective. Miller had 11 carries for 65 yards and a touchdown. Am I putting Miller in starting lineups right now? No. But he is a clear direct handcuff and has a couple different routes to becoming the Saints RB1. He could offer some standalone value as well, with the Saints playing poorly and offering a lot of garbage time. Again, Alvin Kamara significantly outsnapped Miller. This isn't a flip. We talked about Jaxson Dart being a streaming option, and someone has to catch the ball there. Wan'Dale Robinson popped early in the first 2 games. We talked about him in one of the earlier waiver wire videos. Robinson has had 2 rough weeks in a row, but to be fair, week 3 was a rough week for everybody, hence the Russell Wilson getting benched. Week 4, again, we talked about it, just a very low volume game here because the Giants had the league. What we liked about Wan'Dale Robinson earlier was that Brian Daboll wasn't just restricting Robinson to catching the ball 1 yard beyond the line of scrimmage. He is letting Robinson actually play downfield, and we should continue to see that varied usage with Neighbors out now. You could also turn to Darius Slayton. Slayton's role took a massive hit last year, obviously with the emergence of Malik Neighbors, because their roles do conflict. So Neighbors being out could open up more opportunities for Slayton as a primary deep threat, something that the Giants will need as they get past this week 5 easy matchup into more difficult matchups where they will likely be chasing points. But again, still favor Robinson. Robinson played all but 2 total snaps. He ran more routes. He is the less volatile option. I make this video before the Monday night game so you guys can get it early, and 9 times out of 10, that means that I do not include any Monday night players unless I already believe in said player. I have made enough videos talking about Ollie Gordon that you guys know I believe. Regardless of the Monday night numbers, Gordon is a premier handcuff that can offer standalone value. He is playing an excellent complementary role to Devon Achane, and if he can continue to see those goal line opportunities, he will move himself into a true standalone value here. Again, I am not saying that he is displacing Achane. I do not believe that is going to happen. But even at its worst, Miami's offense does still offer plentiful goal line opportunities because their defense is inconsistent. Grab Gordon for his long-term value here. This one is a bit tough because it stands to reason that Scott's value would completely disappear once Aaron Jones is back, but I caution you to not operate as if Jones is coming back as soon as his 4 weeks on IR is up. Hamstring injuries on older players don't always recover at a very typical timeline, and I wouldn't be shocked if Jones' stint on IR trickles past 4 weeks, especially because they don't really have a need to rush him back the way that Jordan Mason has been running and how competent Scott has been as a change of pace receiving back. Scott had 6 receptions on 8 targets for 43 yards and a receiving touchdown. Jordan Mason dominated on the ground with 16 carries and did have a few receptions. But considering what we knew heading into the season, the Vikings wanted a 2-back system with a very clear early down back, goal line back, and a very clear receiving back. So I think this production will stick. Scott is worth an ad. Do not go all out because the role, again, would evaporate if Jones is back, and the Vikings do have a week 6 bye. I have a show later today with Bleacher Report talking about buy low trade candidates, and I sat there deciding on my list of players, and all I could think about was, it is such a shame that I cannot list Calvin Ridley. I cannot, in good conscience, recommend buying Calvin Ridley because the Titans are such a mess, and Elic Ayomanor is operating as the wide receiver 1. I am trying to wrap my head around it because Ayomanor is definitely talented, and the Titans got a steal at his draft value. But Ridley's production is high-key concerning. Ridley is a 30-year-old wide receiver, but I never really looked at him as a 30-year-old wide receiver in the same way that I look at other 30-year-old wide receivers because Ridley was an old rookie. He was drafted at age 23, then because of an injury season, and then because of that suspension season, he has only played 5 full seasons. But perhaps 30 years old is 30 years old, no matter how you cut it. Ayomanor might be the better bet rest of season. Now, because the Titans offense is such a mess, Ayomanor is further down on the list, but apples to apples at this point, we need to prepare for the reality that this split might just favor him as the wide receiver 1 moving forward, and he would have upside if Cam Ward can just progress positively a little bit here. By the way, the Bleacher Report show is every Monday at 4 p.m. EST on the Bleacher Report app and Bleacher Report YouTube channel if you want to support your girl. You're going to have to play this one by ear. This is probably not a claim that you want to make on Tuesday night, but I did want to put it on the list so that you have the information, so you can act on it after waivers run, and you have more information on the level of severity to the injuries on Ricky Pearsall and Jawan Jennings. Both players exited the game, and Jennings was already dealing with multiple injuries. And we will likely see the most ridiculous amount of targets ever to Christian McCaffrey, but someone in the receiving core has to step up. It is between Demarcus Robinson and Kendrick Bourne. My lean is towards Robinson. Bourne was involved much earlier in the game, and Robinson didn't get his first target until both Pearsall and Jennings were out. But you have to remember that Robinson was coming off of a suspension. During preseason, he was the most active receiver while everyone else was injured. Bourne was actually signed later. Over the past several years, when Robinson has been called upon to step up on other teams when there were injuries, he has done so, specifically for the Rams. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel. You can find me across all social media platforms at It's Terra Time. So make sure you are tuned in because I am bringing you more fantasy football content all season long. Every week I've got you covered with top waiver wire editions, live shows where you can ask Q&A, ask me any questions that you want, and so much more.